as Seamus introduced me, I've Seamus Hoyne. I've been in the energy sector for 25 years. In 1998, I set up the Tipperary Energy Agency and was managing director up until 2012. And now I'm chair of the board of directors, currently working within LIT. And since January, I took up the role as Dean of Flexible and Work-Based Learning, but still very much involved with industry and business development, and significantly involved in research. And my research is generally in the field of sustainable development. So the title of my talk is the future of energy, and so I'm a mechanical engineer, but I'm not going to speak about technology. So any technology or engineers out there waiting for an in-depth discussion on the technology future, you're not going to get that from me. I'm going to look from my perspective of the trends that I see over the coming years that SMEs in particular need to be aware of and can react to and take opportunities from. Just quickly about LIT. First, we're an institute of technology, soon to become a technological university. We're in the process of merging with Athlone Institute of Technology in the centre of Ireland. We're located in the midwest of Ireland with campuses in Limerick and in Tipperary and in Clare, with just under 7,000 students. So since 2011 in the Institute, I've been very much involved in the research and development area. And so I headed up the development unit from 2017 to just this year. And it's part of our broader research, development and innovation agenda, where we focus particularly on applied research. And the development unit is very much focused on sustainability and energy efficiency, climate action and social enterprise as a mechanism to support rural development also. So very much involved in working with businesses, with industries, with communities to solve real world problems, and not, I suppose, the fundamental research. And we do have a significant team working in the enterprise space, and that's headed up by Gillian Barry. So we have actually 6 enterprise centres ourselves, so where we support startups and innovation and work with emerging SMEs and existing SMEs to expand and develop. And then that is also complemented by our postgraduate activity headed by our head of research, our head of graduate studies, John Cosgrove. And increasingly the trend and for industry and for SMEs is where our researchers are now embedded within the companies, rather than sitting in the institutes. They're actually doing the research within the companies, which is a very exciting opportunity for SMEs to consider into the future. And as I mentioned, the development unit in particular is focused specifically on sustainability. And obviously dealing with technical aspects in terms of energy efficiency and renewable energy, but also broader policy agenda around climate action, climate adaptation, working with social enterprise, and then also engaging in other areas around outdoor learning and using technology for change. And we've grown to a point where we currently run just under 33 million euros worth of European projects with partners all across Europe. And I suppose broadly in the context of LIT and the Technological University, we're also part of a pan-European university, the RUN network, where we work with similar institutes of technology all across Europe, trying to solve societal problems on a collective manner. And all of these universities and institutes are based outside of capital cities. So you can see it across Portugal, Austria, Hungary, and the Netherlands and Finland. We work collectively on program development, research and development, and innovative engagement activities with external stakeholders. So I suppose that's the quick introduction. I suppose I just want to show a quick video of Ursula von der Leyen, which really just to indicate the policy context. And I frequently come back to this, the plan from Europe, because it is the ultimate driving force for all of the policies and measures which John spoke about earlier on, they affect all aspects of society. So hopefully the sound will come through for you here.
Fighting climate change has become the greatest responsibility of our times. And this is why in Europe, we have set our objective to become the first carbon-neutral continent by 2050. This means leading an entire continent towards transitioning to clean energy, reinventing our infrastructure, and much, much more. It may sound abstract, and it sounds huge. And yes, it's actually both. And it is also possible. Why? In the European Union, we have a good record of turning ambitions into successes. We are a political and economic union with 27 countries and a total population of 450 million people. On the ashes of 2 world wars, we have secured lasting peace among us. From a divided continent, we have created a union without borders. And I strongly believe we can also achieve our next challenge, becoming the first carbon-neutral continent. When I became president of the European Commission, I sent a clear signal. In the first 2 weeks, I tabled the European Green Deal. This European Green Deal is both our vision for a climate-neutral continent and a very dedicated roadmap to this goal. It is 50 actions for 2050, ranging from the first ever European climate law, to circular economy, to a biodiversity strategy, planting trees, protecting precious nature and animals, recycling, and waste management, just to name a few. When the coronavirus pandemic hit, we resolved not to let our objective be deranged.
So I suppose just to move on from that, and hopefully, sorry, I seem to have, here we go. The Green Deal, I'm sure all of you are aware of. I mean, I encourage everybody to have a look at it and I suppose refresh yourself. It's hugely ambitious, hugely has great foresight. And for me, there are 3 words in there which we need to be conscious of and when we think about the energy solutions of the future. The first is that it's green, and we'll speak about that in a moment. We consider digital, because basically we have a digital transformation, and we consider how we're going to finance this transformation. And these are the terms that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. But just to step back from the Green Deal, and I see some partners that we worked with previously on a previous project, which was the FREED project, which was supporting SMEs, again, looking at enterprise development and making that connection between funding and SMEs for development. And we would have worked with the Tipperary Energy Agency and a company called Solo Energy as part of that project. And I suppose this is, for me, a real example of the technology being the component, but the business acumen and the enterprise opportunity being critical. So Solo Energy started off as a small startup company in Cork and was acquired by the SMS Group in 2019, and is basically spinning out a technology which uses virtual power plants, batteries, smart meters, and associated technology, and is now selling that solution in the UK and hopefully in Ireland in the near future. So you can see that SMEs can both become sustainable in terms of their own right, but SMEs can capture parts of the market and provide services and solutions into the future. And I suppose other parts of my presentation have been informed by my work in Europe. I am the Secretary General of FEDEREN, and FEDEREN is the European Federation of Local and Regional Energy Agencies. And I've been proud to be Secretary General for the last 3 years. And it's a network of over 80 energy agencies across Europe working on the energy transition and climate action. And I see Erin, who is part of the SME Power project, is here today and has been a member of FEDERN. And also in Managed Energy, which I coordinated for the European Commission, this looked at how we can connect the energy world with the finance world. And for me, as an engineer, this is where I've spent a lot of my time over the last number of years trying to understand this crossover. And ultimately, the technology for me is not the problem. Ultimately, it's about people and it's about finance and how we can scale up to this, and ramp up the level of ambition that John spoke about in his presentation in an Irish context, but also in a European context. So the key drivers, again, to reiterate for me, the green energy supply, but local energy supply also being a critical transformational change, the digital agenda and digitization, and the finance. I'm going to cover those three topics as the trends where I see significant change happening. But on top of that, it was really great to see the presentation from Sarah on the skills issue, because ultimately every single person in every home, business and industry needs to upskill around the carbon neutral agenda. And the Energy Academy that SEAI are running out complements many other activities happening out there around skills and upskilling. And that runs from the chief executive right down through middle management, the production lines, the core staff within the companies. I think we critically need infrastructure. So for SMEs to be able to avail of the change and respond, they will either need to invest in infrastructure or also have infrastructure put in place that enables them to respond to the opportunities. The customers are now becoming key drivers of change. More and more customers are demanding to see the green credentials of products and services that are being supplied. And you saw that from some of the examples that Sarah presented. And we see that in particular with industries that we're working with. They have put in place their green agendas, their energy management plans. Now they're looking at their supply chain and their suppliers and demanding that they look at their green credentials also, whether that's packaging, energy, etc. Whatever needs to be done also needs to be sustainable in the context of the business. And so looking at the growth within SMEs into the future, how are they going to manage that in the context of future energy supply, carbon tax issues, and the circular economy drivers? And I think the key word many SMEs have learned over the last 18 months is agility, being able to pivot and respond to the market changes. And we are going to see, again, huge change over the next 30 years up to 2050 in terms of the overall energy infrastructure policy agenda. So SMEs need to be able to be agile and respond to those. And the circular economy is also a critical issue. You know, that's a whole seminar in itself, which we won't get into, but it becomes part of the language that we start to speak about when we start looking at sustainability in the SME sector. So if we look at energy supply, and hydrogen was mentioned, etc. I mean, I think for me personally, the debate about hydrogen must be that any hydrogen has to focus on green hydrogen. But I think what we are going to see over the next number of years, and is already happening, is a complete change in our energy supply system. So moving away from our centralized production, which we will still have, but now in the form of large-scale renewable energy production, but also more local supply. You know, so this is a farm with a large-scale PV array, also providing electricity to some polytunnels where they use for horticulture. So SMEs are going to become their own energy suppliers. There's going to be much more decentralized production, and I've used the broad term community ownership models. So that community could be a community of place where we have businesses, individuals, homeowners coming together to own production facilities and providing that energy into the grid, whether that is heat or electricity. And really, we're changing the model from a cost to an income perspective. So normally energy is a cost to an SME. The opportunity now becomes to flip the model and become a producer and to generate an income stream. Clearly, there are technical issues. Clearly, there are problems, but the market is developing very quickly in different parts of Europe. And we do have examples now in Ireland where community energy supply working with industries are emerging. And again, just another short video. Again, we won't show all of this, but this speaks about community power, which is a...
Now we're going to head to a small village in Tipperary, where the people there have such progressive ideas on green energy. Donald Byrne met up with the locals in Templederry, and they are so driven by community power.
The electricity produced here on a North Tipperary hillside can be used in the most unexpected of ways. Powering this brush that's become a relaxing favourite with cows waiting to calve. Or this self-charging machine that's making the yard brush redundant when it comes to cleaning sheds and yards. It's all happening on the farm of Aidan Power, who has a dairy herd of 140 cows. He's not just using greener electricity, he's embracing as much new and labour-saving technology as he can. Part of what you've done is you're running the entire farm operation here, apart from the house, on this community energy system.
That's correct, Donald. We're using the electricity from the wind farm and the co-op here to drive our dairy farm here.
Roughly what percentage of your energy is being provided by the community project?
Well, 100% of our energy on the farm, everything more or less on the farm is run through electricity. We use it for heating water and milking the cows, cleaning the place and cooling the milk here behind us. And we use about 1/3 of that is used at night. So it's quite efficient and cost saving to do that.
And in terms of your consumption of the energy produced by the co-op, what percentage of your overall consumption would that be?
On the farm here, it would be almost 100%.
The overall energy bill for the farm is around €4,500 a year. So how much is Aidan saving?
We're roughly saving approximately €500 a year, okay, on energy compared to.
And you have the added advantage that it's green, it's being produced within the community and being used by the community.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So it's a win-win.
Very much so, win-win for everybody in the area.
Aidan lives in Templederry and he's a shareholder in the wind farm company. The electricity from the two turbines.
So again, I suppose we have a model there of individuals and businesses. So that's a large dairy farmer, which is effectively a business coming together, investing to develop energy supply, creating a company called Community Power now that can supply and trade that electricity, and is now working with communities and businesses across Ireland to develop and scale up that supply. So now he's addressing, and I think a number of people mentioned the agriculture sector being a huge issue. So agriculture is certainly trying to respond in terms of their energy consumption. Now they also need to look at their other greenhouse gas emissions. I think the other huge trend is in digital and digitization. And in LIT, we're spending a huge amount of time in this area, particularly in the construction sector. But for SMEs, you know, the huge opportunity now is in terms of digitizing services and their systems. And that is coming. So smart meters, smart homes and businesses, the use of data to improve performance and energy efficiency and overall environmental practices is becoming really critical. So getting access to the data in user-friendly ways and having that ability to visualize your consumption and your metrics. And businesses, SMEs, they need to look at their metrics. So they're looking at profit and loss, they're looking at cost per unit produced, cost per sale, etc. But also they need to start to look at visualizing their energy and environmental indicators. And then, you know, how do you respond and how do you prepare your SME? So we've heard about the SEAI supports and there are other similar supports across Europe. There's some really interesting things happening in terms of using virtual reality and augmented reality to deliver energy audits. So while you might not be an expert in doing energy audits in your building, there are now companies providing services where you can do that virtually, and those will emerge over time. And I think I mentioned the complementary supports to the SME Energy Academy training that Sarah spoke about. There's an interesting initiative happening also at a regional level in the Midwest Regional Skills Forum. They combine the digital agenda with the green economy agenda. And now micro SMEs can get supports to upskill their staff on digital skills, but also on the green economy. So looking at energy, waste, water, but they're using digital technology to enable that. So they get a win-win. They upskill their staff in how to use technology, but also then apply that in a particular context of green issues. So we're seeing now companies from the ground up, from the employees up, coming up with ideas to implement new work practices, whether that's looking at energy consumption and recommending energy equipment upgrades, or else coming up with new ways of informing the staff around energy efficiency. So again, hitting the digital and the green issue in at once. And I suppose a lot of my work over the last number of years has been in the finance area, and I think this is where we have an explosion of opportunities emerging. We have fantastic and emerging supports from SEAI and through the government programs, and across Europe, similar programs. But public sector financing cannot finance the transformation that needs to happen. So we are going to have to mobilize private investment from everything from pension funds right through to venture capital investment, where, and everything in between. And that is happening. And you may have heard recently this recent announcement around kind of the green taxonomy. So this is a kind of an EU initiative to consider what is eligible for investment as, I suppose, green finance, and considering what's appropriate and where the financial institutions can invest their funds. The issue of ESG, so environmental, social and governance criteria, managing those and understanding the criteria to be achieved, to be considered as green finance. I sat in on a module last year actually on ESG with the finance sector, with bankers. I think I was the only engineer in the room with 40 bankers. So certainly challenging for my engineering brain, but the shift is coming in terms of new green financing solutions being available. And we have emerging energy supply companies or energy performance contracting solutions. So this is where an SME needs to concentrate on its core business. Energy is typically not its core business. It's a service into its business. But it can avail of solutions through ESCOs or energy performance contracts if they're at a sufficient scale. And we now have opportunities to aggregate or bring multiple SMEs together where they can procure services at a particular level. And more green loans and supports are going to emerge. And I think one of the challenges for SMEs will be moving away from the grant, and not just for SMEs, but also for homeowners. We will have to move away from a grant solution to a finance solution. And it's a different perspective on how you do the numbers. And just, I suppose, in the context of that, to introduce one of the projects that we're working on, the SPEEDIER, which again is a Horizon 2020 project, European project. And it reinforces some of the messages that were spoken about earlier, that most SMEs don't have the time or the opportunity to look at the energy aspect. They don't understand where to go to get information. They don't have the capacity in-house, and they don't understand the connection between the finance right or the auditing right through to the implementation. And SPEEDIER, I suppose, is trying to address those issues. And again, reinforcing some of the messages when SMEs were asked through the SPEEDIER project why they haven't been implementing energy efficiency measures. And this is, I suppose, the value of debt of energy audits. Lots of energy audits done, but they aren't delivered. The measures aren't implemented. And approximately 1/3 said it was a lack of finance to implement the measures. And then followed by couldn't control aspects of the building or lack of knowledge, but finance being a critical issue. So SPEEDIER project tries to address this. And ultimately it's kind of trying to encourage the development of energy efficiency funds. And these have happened in the public sector. Now we're trying to develop them out into the SME sector. So there is a lot of low-hanging fruit within SMEs, which have actually no cost. So they can be behavior change measures, simple control measures, changing your tariffs, etc. The savings of those typically can get swallowed up in business activity. But can we look at mechanisms where we capture part of those savings and we use those to pay for low-cost measures? We get greater savings, they start to pay for higher cost measures, etc., etc. So the SPEEDIER project has been supporting the development of SPEEDIER experts that then start to work with the SMEs. And in Ireland, we're working with 12 SMEs to support their implementation. And just a very simple example, one particular SME identified the opportunity to change a saw that it uses in part of its production process. By that investment, so it's not an energy investment, but they were able to improve the production of their facility by about 30%, and the energy reduction was about 30%. So by thinking about energy in the context of the production process, they were able to make a significant energy efficiency improvement and an overall efficiency improvement. And so SPEEDIER is the next step, which is another layer on top of the Energy Academy. Provide the skills, provide the knowledge, and then deliver the savings. And that's the critical change. And so I think we will see more and more of these services for SMEs trying to complement the policy agenda that SEAI have and that John spoke about. Sorry, I'll just skip on. Oops. Don't know what happened there, apologies. And I suppose just finally to mention, and there may be SMEs out there, both in Ireland and internationally, who are in the construction sector. And we are, I suppose, bringing this all together, particularly for the construction sector, to set up a digital academy where we will upskill the construction sector, both for circular economy, digitization, and energy efficiency. So trying to support an innovative education and training mechanism, the upskilling. And again, you can see that we're working with education partners across Ireland, but also industry to make sure that happens. And more of these connected academic training and industry perspectives are going to be required to lead the transition. So the Digital Academy for Sustainable Built Environment, I suppose, is one example of supporting the industry in the transformation. So just to wrap up, you know, I suppose looking back at the three themes, I think the way in which SMEs consume energy is going to dramatically change, and they can become producers. They have assets, they have buildings, they have roofs, they have land. They can become valuable to the energy infrastructure, so they can start to think about, flip the conversation about cost into potential development. And I think overall, the SMEs need to look at what the clients and their customers are looking for, and they are going to look at both their overall sustainability and their green credentials, and by investing in energy efficiency, they can achieve both. I think digital skills and the tools will be critical for SMEs and for overall, all across Europe. And I think now SMEs in a particular sector in Ireland will be able to learn from their counterparts across Europe through the skills we've developed over the last number of years. And I think financing over the next number of years will be a really interesting space to watch. And I think we have SMEs working in the fintech sector. I think that crossover between digital and finance, providing solutions into the SME sector, will be very, very interesting. And as I said, your customers are going to drive change. We see that even if I speak, the customers within LIT are our students. They are driving us to change our practices in the food we serve, in the lighting we use, in the PCs that we drive. So they're just a snapshot what society is asking. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take questions and always available if anybody wishes to contact me or for any follow-up. Thanks very much.